Welcome everyone to the Proven Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Church. I'm a music producer from Northeast Ohio. I began this weekly interview series to give you different perspectives from artists, producers, engineers, and other individuals in the music industry. In each episode, we touch on not only what has helped the person succeed, but we also touch on what has shaped them into the person that they are today. I hope you're able to gain some real proven knowledge from the show, and that it helps elevate you on your own journey to success as well. Let's get into it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 231 here at the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I welcomed a producer from Stone Mountain, Georgia. His name is CJGoKrazy. I actually heard his episode on Ashōka's podcast, who was on our show a few months ago. Ashōka's podcast is called Junkyxrd. I heard CJ have a really awesome and inspiring interview on her show, so I wanted to reach out to him and see if he'd be interested in coming on Proven Knowledge Podcast. And luckily he hit me back, and we made it happen this week. And again, dropped a lot of amazing gems and inspiring gems for producers and creatives alike. He also let me know about his beginnings in production. He talked about his love for melodies and building around melodies to start out beats. He also talked about how he got into music production in general. And I really love at the end when I asked him about, what would he have done differently 10 years ago. The response that he gives is very in-depth, so I think you guys are going to enjoy that one toward the end of the episode. We also talked about his EP from last year called Anomaly and what he has planned moving forward. He also just talked about, being able to balance family life and pretty much everything he has going on with music and the importance of adapting as you go in your journey, which I think is something that we all can take from and apply to our own lives. So without further ado, let's get into this one. All right, so welcome everyone to episode 231 here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today I have a fellow colleague of Ashōka who was on this show a few months back. Heard this guy on her podcast, Junkyxrd, a few months ago. He's a Georgia-based producer. Everybody please welcome CJGoKrazy. How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? I'm doing good, man. How you?
Man, I'm doing great. As good as I can. Recovering from a cold, but I'm doing okay. So you make it work. And like I said, man, I'm glad to have you here today. And to kind of kick off every episode, we have the guest give some background. How did you get into music initially? Just some basic info for those that might not know you and what you do.
I've really been kind of attached to music a lot of my life. I grew up in church. I sang in a choir. I played the drums for a little bit. It was me and two of my cousins. We used to rotate playing the drums. It was kind of more so from there. And then I didn't really do much after I got out, like when I grew up and went like to college and stuff. I kind of stayed around music. Mm-hmm. I would listen to it all the time, and I would kind of just hum my own type of things, towards beats I would listen to. I would always say, this would be kind of cool if they did this instead of that, Yeah. And then I just met a couple people that were already doing it. And then I kind of built relationships with them. And then after that, I kind of, I stayed around music for a very long time. And then I think when my dad passed, I kind of delved back into it just as a form of peace. Just making it even before my dad passed. I was doing it for my videos I used to have on YouTube. I used to have a gaming channel, and right around COVID time, everybody and their auntie was trying to stream. So I was like, I gotta get on it. And I was playing 2K at the time, and I would see other people, they would have music in the background of their stuff, and I was like, okay, I need to go find some music. And at the time I was using YouTube. They had a royalty-free library, but I was making way too many videos and I didn't have enough sounds. So I stopped using their songs and I started utilizing my own computer. I realized I had, I think I had Logic and GarageBand. And I was using GarageBand, just putting sounds together that I thought sounded cool to make beats. And a little while after that, it kind of got to a point where I started using Logic. And I would be at work and on my lunch breaks, I would make stuff for my videos, for my content. And I think a couple of my coworkers came in and they were like, well, what are you in here doing? I was like, I'm just making, music for my content for YouTube, my video game channel. They was like, well, this sounds like something that you can use for something else other than, YouTube.
Yeah.
And I kind of went from there. I kind of started, taking it a little bit more serious. Like I said, once my dad passed, it kind of turned into I'm doing this because I'm sad. I was in a depressed state for a little bit, and I kind of just I use music as my outlet to kind of grow from it. And then it got to a point where I started just learning everything about it I could.
Yeah.
It just kind of evolved into something special.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that it's been involved in your life for that long, first of all, music in general. And I totally agree with you, man. It really is that outlet, you know what I mean, at the end of the day, to be able to have, in those darkest moments, to be able to help you out, which is such a huge thing. Like I said, I'm very grateful to hear that for you, it was that positive, constructive experience, too, to be able to, have that. And then have the parallels, too, of, your love for gaming and then combining that with the love for music too. And I think that's what we talked about on my episode with Ashōka that I did a few months ago in the summertime. We talked about the parallels between the two worlds. So for you, since you have, experience with gaming and that background as well, what do you think are the big parallels when it comes to, especially producing, because producing is primarily with, the DAW on the laptop, things like that, and kind of building out the sounds and the soundscape. Have you seen parallels between the two? And how does each one kind of play off of one another for you?
As far as music and gaming?
Yeah.
I would say they're not necessarily, they're in certain instances, but I think with the gaming, when I was doing it, I had to edit my own video. Mm-hmm. So it was literally cutting a piece here, adding a piece here, adding different features where the screen would shift from one place to another. So it kind of really does coincide with music. For me, it did. I just kind of took everything that I did when I was making the gaming channel, and I kind of added it into I put it more into my music. Mm-hmm. So now with certain songs that I make, I might add a filter to a certain part, or I might shift off of the beat and go somewhere else and then come back to it. So it's even with the videos, they would take you on an adventure. I would have it where it would be a backdrop or a water drop, switching from one transition to another transition. So it was always something that I was doing that was trying to pique the interest of the people that were watching, or even somebody that was listening, because even on YouTube, you could have something playing and somebody could just walk by and they won't even be watching the video. They'll just hear the sound.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was trying to do two things at the same time. I was trying to get my following up on my gaming channel, and I was also trying to utilize the sounds that I was creating, because after a while I started making my own sounds. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I want people to hear this, and I think that wasn't one of the biggest reasons why I started doing more music. It was just because I wanted to create, and I wanted to be able to express my own emotions and my feelings and how I feel, and put it into a song. And, hopefully and preferably, somebody would hear it and they would feel those same emotions.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me. So I would have to say that.
Yeah. And that's really the beauty of it at the end of the day too, is who it can resonate with. You know what I mean? We put our real feelings and emotions in there, and then someone else hears it and they have a memory, whether it's good or bad or anything in between. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing. And I like that too, because I think that doing it for the gaming channel and things like that, that attracts the auditory listeners, the auditory learners and the visual learners too. And right. So you're basically combining the two worlds together, which is super awesome. And I'm kind of curious to know about your process, because I've heard some of your stuff on BeatStars. I've heard some of your stuff on Apple Music too, your artist releases and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about the creation process. What are you starting with? Are you strictly melody based to begin with, and then kind of building from there, or does it just kind of vary per song and idea? How does it go for you?
It really doesn't. I'm really a melody type person first. Sometimes it varies, but it really is just straight off melody. Just depending on how I'm feeling, what I'll make is I'll start with like maybe like a piano or something first, and then I'll use that as like the bass. And I'm like, okay, I like this. I like how this sounds, but I want something else. So I'll change that sound, keep the same chord progression or whatever I use to make it, and I'll put it in another sound.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I've always been like me being born in the 90s. My mom used to listen to a lot of R&B, you know, so, and my dad did too. So like all of the stuff I make a lot of the time is R&B based, because R&B gives you this like feeling. Yeah. Like sometimes the stuff that I like to make, like now especially, it's like it gives out that gushy water feeling. Like I don't know how to explain it, but like when you hear it, it's like, man, it gives you like a feeling of like, not like a euphoric feeling, but it gives you like you floating on clouds.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that I do a lot of the stuff that I do make. I like to start with the melody, because I already know, like once I get the melody down, I know exactly what to do with the drums every single time. And like a lot of people that do follow me on my live, whenever I get on live, they'll always say, oh yeah. Sometimes they'll give like their opinion of, hey, add this or add that. But little do they know, I was already getting ready to add that.
Yeah.
I just don't just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna add that because you said so. For me, it's about feeling. Like when it comes to making music, I don't just put things in there because they sound good. I have to listen to it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but let's move that out the way. Yeah. I don't want that right now. And then I'll add it back in. But mostly, yeah, it's melodies. Like melodies does something to me. Like that's the meat and potatoes of the beat. The drums are gonna be there. You know, the drums are they're gonna hit, but sometimes you're gonna remember something in the melody. If it's just a piano or some strings or a pad or a lead, or it's just so many different things that you can utilize. And once you get your melody process down, it's beautiful, because it took me a lot of time. Like even on Ashōka's podcast, when I was telling like the younger producers, like I usually use loops a lot. Like I remember when I first started, like a lot of my first projects, I would utilize loops, and I wasn't even putting in drum patterns for the most part. I would find a nice drum loop that I enjoyed, and I would put it on the beat. Yeah. I would go from there, you know. But now I still tell people all the time, it doesn't matter what you use. Music has no rules. We're being honest, you know. But a lot of times I like to create all of my stuff, because for me, I like people to hear like the different drum bounces that I put in different songs, you know, and even like certain things that I use, I might use them over and over again in several songs, because people that follow me, they're like, I'm always looking for him to use this. Yeah. And I always end up using it, but I use it somewhere else in another pattern. So it makes the listener kind of like study you a little bit. Yeah. Like, okay, I want to know what this person does. But yeah, melodies for me is going to always be king, because if you make a fire melody, they're going to be like, you remember that melody that went, like, oh yeah, I know that song, because everybody's going to know it. Yeah. So for me, that's what it is.
And that's what draws people in too, more so than the drums themselves. So I can relate to that a ton, because I've always said, like, when people ask me that on a podcast, I say I start with the melody first and then go to the drums. I'm kind of envious of people that start with drums and then they build around. I'm like, I can't do that well at all, for whatever reason. Like, I'm just not good at it. So I feel like the melody is that main part. So when you get that in there, it becomes a little easier to kind of build out the rest of it. So
like, yeah. I've actually, like, I can do it. I can start a beat with just drums. It's super fun to me, because now you're it's like having a skeleton. Yeah. And putting the meat on the skeleton. So it's like, oh, okay. You know, and then like you can create a different type of bounce that goes with the melody too. So I think I try my best to challenge myself sometimes, like depending on how I'm feeling. I'm like, you know what, today I might start with drums first. And then I'll go off of that and then build a melody. And it gives you a challenge, but it also excites you once you see that you can be successful. Yeah. I know a lot of people that do that. I have a friend now. She always tells me about my R&B melodies. She's like, I want to be like that. I'm like, it's not hard. It's just you got to really like delve into it and take time with R&B music. Like trap and all of that stuff. I feel like all the other genres, it's certain genres like you really got to dig into. Like for me, I know the ones I really had to dig into was Afro. R&B was like second nature to me. And then I think like even trying to get into pop. So those are the ones that I've been like locked in on a lot lately. Especially like R&B soul too. But I just try to study. I tell people all the time, study as much as you can. Yeah. Like if you want to learn something, go watch it. See how somebody does it, remake it, and then once you remake it, you got all the base to it. Then you take what you want from it and create your own sauce with it, and then make a beat.
Yeah. Hey there, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick minute out to let you know about a couple different ways that you can support the podcast. One of the ways is by clicking that support the podcast button within your streaming platform. That is if you want to be a monthly supporter of the show. You can contribute either 99 cents, $5, or $10 a month. So that's the first way, and that's the more traditional way that we've had now for the last couple years. The other method that we actually just recently introduced is from our good friends over at Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a virtual tip jar. We have set our limit to a minimum of $10, but you can go make one-time, one-off donations. So if you visit ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast, you'll be able to donate. And all these different forms of donation go towards getting new guests every single week, getting potential sponsors on board to do giveaways, and overall just making the show better for you guys. So if you want to do that Ko-fi link, it's ko-fi.com/the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Otherwise, again, look for that support the podcast button in your streaming platform if you'd like to be a monthly supporter. And I just want to say thank you guys for your contributions. And without further ado, let's get back into the episode. That's how you get to that signature sound, like what you were talking about earlier. You just start developing that over time. Like we said too, the possibilities are endless. Like there's really no rules to any of this stuff. You just got to figure out what works for you and go, and just keep it going, keep innovating, and definitely always be a student of the game too. Like always be studying. So yeah, man, I definitely love that. I know you just dropped a 2-track EP like about a week and a half ago at this point, Anomaly. So tell us about that. Tell us about...
That is super old.
Really?
That's super old. I dropped that maybe at the beginning of the year, I want to say.
I thought when I read it said September, but maybe I'm wrong.
You know what? Let's check, because I sure thought I dropped it, unless they changed the time of the date on it, but I know the last time I dropped something, it's been almost, I don't want to say it's been a year. I don't even want to lie.
Wow.
It might have been a year. It might have been a year. And I'll even explain why that happened. Let's see. Oh, yeah, September. That was last year.
Oh, it's 2020. Well, maybe I misread the date then.
Yeah, that was last year. God, it's been a year? Well.
I was going to say, it makes it more interesting then. We could still dive into it. So.
Well, so when that happened, I was the moment I was in, I think that was probably the beginning of the evolution of where I am now. Because I know a lot of the times I was like making different types of beats at that point. And I was like, one of my favorite artists, I have like a couple of them, Summer Walker, Black, and Bryson Tiller. I can listen to all three of them all day. And it was a couple songs that I heard with Bryson Tiller, and it had this like pumping sound. Like it sounded like the beat, it sounded like the melody was like moving up and moving down in a roller coaster. So I went, I was like, I don't know how to do that. Of course, if you don't know how to do it, you got to go learn it. Yeah. So it was another producer that I watched. I think his name is Lifestyle. Lifestyle did it. He was doing he was showing how to like make a Bryson Tiller type beat. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this because this is what I've been studying. I've been wanting to learn. And it was a certain thing that he taught by using a VST, and he shows you how he did it. And then I was like, oh. So when I figured out how to do the pumping effect, I started using my own chords to make a melody. And everything else just kind of came from that. Yeah. And I also think around that time, I think something had shifted with me in my life. I forgot what it was, which is why I named that song. I think that song, the EP was called Anomaly, but like the first song was like Life Changes. I think something had happened. It was something positive, but I forget what it was. But yeah, that was like the beginning. I want to say that was the beginning of me learning to, pick, as far as like learning R&B for real and learning like what I could like fully utilize into it, because like a lot of my other songs, they had like remnants of, okay, you're creating your own sound at this point. You're figuring out who you are. So that's when that started. I have to say that's when that started. I think those two songs are probably my favorite songs to date that I have. And I literally just was talking to one of my friends the other day, and they were, what did she tell me? She told me that she actually sent me one of my songs from one of my earlier beat albums that I made. And she was like, no matter what I'm going through, this song still hits every single time. And that song is like almost 2.5, 3 years old. Wow. So I was like, maybe it's time for me to drop another beat tape. And I literally asked all my people on Facebook, I was like, is it time to drop another beat tape? And people were responding like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So, like I said, I think it's probably time to get back into that. Yeah. But like I said, there's been a lot of things that's been going on. Let's see, I have 3 kids now. My youngest son is 1, my oldest son is 5, and my daughter's 4. So with that, things have shifted. Everybody's back in the workforce now. So my wife is working and I'm working too, while doing music on the side and being a dad and being a husband. So it's a million other things that were happening when I was making those albums. It was kind of, it was slow motion with a lot of things. Yeah. But now there's a couple of things that are going on. I'm working with a couple artists, and I'm doing a couple things now. So it's like, okay, trying to get these projects and stuff done. I haven't really stopped and said, let me just make something, that I want to put out on my own, So I think at that time I was trying to get people aware of who I am, what I sound like, what's my sound, and there's a lot of people that have been there since, the beginning. I think I'm going on like, 3.5, 4 years now since I've been producing. So it's a lot of people that have been here since the beginning. But yeah, Anomaly was a good one. That was a really good one. Yeah. So.
And it goes to show too that the music is always fresh to someone else's ears too. Like even if you sit with it for years, or you've already, lived with it, made it, all that stuff, someone could hear it 5 years from now and be like, this is totally new. I've never heard this. This is incredible. You know what I mean? Right. So it goes to show the power of just being able to have that music out there, like what it does. Yeah. So that's awesome, man. And I'm excited to see what is going to be the next move too, and what you're getting ready to do here soon. So I'll definitely be on the lookout for what you got going on. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. And we're down to the last few questions here. And these are ones I ask on every episode. They're more life-related ones. And the first one is, if you could go back 10 years ago, give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe not change anything at all, what do you think you would do?
32 now, so that means I was 22. If I could go back 10 years, I would probably tell my 22-year-old self this is when I was in college too. Oh yeah, so now that refund. The refunds used to hit. I would have told myself, stop buying video games and shoes and food and buy FL. I think I would have done that, because I feel like I don't feel like that would have. I feel like it would have changed who I am now. But I'm super appreciative of who I am now. Yeah. But if I could go back in time, I would have definitely told myself that, because man, just imagine I would have literally been 10 years in the game. Yeah. I would have learned a lot more. You're always gonna be learning, no matter the length of time that you're in a profession that you're doing. But it's just kind of cool to think about, where would I have been had I started earlier? Yeah. And I think about it all the time, like even with life, like, what would I be if I would have did this earlier? I'm like, things could have been different. Yeah. But sometimes you gotta look at how God pans things out for you, and it's like, even if you think that way, God still would have been. It would have been the same way. God would have been like, "This is the time for you to do this shit." Yeah. And I truly believe that now. that, you know, everything that's happening, everything that's going on, it's in God's time, it's not mine. You know, and I used to try to force so many things, even with music. I used to want people to hear my stuff all the time. Like when I started making music, I wanted it to be good right then. I wanted it to be where, hey, I'm this person. I want you to see me. I want everybody to support me. I want everybody to follow me. I want everybody I know to be like, oh, he's doing this now. This is going to be so cool. And it wasn't that way. And I had to get out of that mindset of, hey, just because you're doing something doesn't mean that everybody's going to follow you right away. You know, it's going to take time. And I had to learn that, you know, and now that I'm at a place where I've understood that to a better level, I just do what I can. And like I said, I've learned how to find pockets. Even now, like, you know what I'm talking about now, we're making a chore list. So now looking at the chore list, I'm like, okay, where is that time for music in this chore list? That is so many things. And I figured out, like, okay, there's a moment here when I get done with this, I have at least an hour or two. And I also think about that question as far as, you know, what I could tell myself 10 years ago. I think about, like, even, like, the time now, like me now. I think I've been this for 3.5 years. Like, I realized that in the time that I was a stay-at-home dad, because that's also a thing, too. When I was talking to Ashōka, I was a stay-at-home dad. And in those 2 years, I think it was 2 years, maybe 2.5, I took a step back a while back and I thought about music and I was like, what in the world? Like, what changed in me? And I realized that God was truly changing me and evolving me into a better person outside of music, but even with music, because I remember back then, it would take me like an hour, 2 hours. And people don't understand that when you first come in, they're like, oh, you take 2 hours to make a beat? What's wrong with you? And I don't like that stigma, because if you take time on a beat, that means you want it to be to a certain extent, you know. But I also realized that when things change around you, you have to be able to utilize your time correctly. And now I've realized that I can make a beat in about 30, 45 minutes. Less than that, too, depending. Like, I shock myself now. And I'm like, wow, I remember back when it took me time to make this beat. You know, even like the different things about music, like you learn sound selection. You learn what sounds good together. You learn how to, you know, EQ certain things. You know how to take the low end out of certain things. You know how to take the high end out. You know how to add reverb here, delay there. You know how to do those things. And once you get those things down pat, it's like stuff moves so much faster. It's like you're a robot, you know, in a good way. So I had to learn those things. And I feel like in that time that I was a stay-at-home dad, I learned how to utilize everything and create quicker shortcuts. To now, you know, now that I'm back, you know, working and, you know, I have 3 kids, it's about, okay, make sure I'm being a dad, make sure I'm being a husband, make sure I'm doing these type of things, but then also make sure you have time to be a producer and find that time. And now if you only got like an hour, okay, cool. You can make 1 beat. You could probably make 2. You get what I'm saying? And then, like, the next time you have free time, you can go back into them. You can mix them. You can make sure everything is leveled, and then go from there. You know, but even then, like, over the 2 years, I've trained my ears to a point where I wanted them to be. You know, they always tell you, you know, you got to train your ears. But I know, based off of my beats and my music, where my sound is, I know where I want it to be. So I don't even necessarily worry about all the time what, you know, the naysayers might say, because sometimes you got to realize this person might not like it. They might say, oh, this sounds different, or this might be too loud. But then you meet somebody else and they say, oh, this is just perfect for me. You know, that's how it goes with artists. You just never know. You know what I'm saying? So I know with my sound and the people that I've built and developed with over the last year, my sound is perfect for them. So I work with them, you know, and then I meet other people based off of that, because somebody might hear a song that I made for them. Oh, who made this song for you? And they'll shoot it right back to me. And then I'll make them be like, oh my goodness, this song is so good. Like, I've had it happen to me several times where I've sent people, artists that I work with, I've sent them like 10, 11, 12 songs. And they'll be like, I can't get past the first song. And it's like, because they're like, I'm so stuck with this one. It's my favorite one already. And I'm like, wait till you go through the rest of them. And then they'll take me back, like, they'll DM me and say, you know what, you're right, because now I'm stuck on the 3rd song. I can't forget the 3rd song. You know, so I think that's a big thing for me, just learning. Like, that's one thing I learned. Like, I learned how to become a better person.
Yeah.
You know, even down to like the people I meet now, like it's a lot of people that, you know, reach out to me, they want to collaborate. And I'm like, sure, you know, a couple of them have come to my home studio and we work, and, you know, I give them the gems that I've learned. I don't mind sharing whatever I've learned, you know, so I even have like I saved the whole playlist of YouTube videos. I have like I think it said maybe like 800, 900 videos since I started this producer journey, you know, and this making music journey, like seriously outside of growing up in it. I just grab videos that I like, save that, okay, save this. And then I'll go back to them from time to time, and it's something that I might have missed. I'll go back, let me go back and watch it again. Now I learned something new to add to the toolbox. Because I tell people all the time, you always want to make sure you're adding to your toolbox. You don't ever want to stop, because the moment you stop, you're gonna stunt yourself, and then you're gonna see somebody else doing something that you're like, I could have did that first. You know, and it's not a race or anything, but you always want to be learning something, because you never know, you might run into somebody that wants to work with you and they ask for something that you might not be able to do off bat. You want to make sure that you're ready for those moments.
Yeah. And that comes with that consistency and putting the work in, like you said, and being able to build that arsenal up and have the confidence in yourself too, which is the biggest thing. And I like what you said about, you know, knowing the right people for you, because not everybody's for you, but there are the right people for you out there. It's just about finding them and staying patient too. So I'm glad to hear that's been the journey, man, for you, because I can tell it's had a lot of good effects on what you're doing in your life and your music and all that stuff. So I think the final question, which is one I've been asking the last few episodes, because these are going to be like the end episodes of 2024, is what are you the most grateful for in 2024? Like over the last year of your life, what do you think you're the most grateful for if you had to pick one thing?
If I could sum it all up in one word, I'd say growth. Because where I was at the beginning of the year isn't where I am now. And I've been through a lot of different things. I have been through a lot of things. And all I can say is God is good. You know, God is amazing, and He has kept me and my family through things that I didn't even know how I was gonna get through. So I would have to say that is the word for me, growth. Nice,
man. I think we can all relate to that in our own way, for sure, no matter what journey we're on. So, but man, I gotta say, thank you again for wanting to come on the show. I really appreciate you for getting back with me, and just keep doing your thing, man. Because like I said, I like the music a lot. I like what you're doing. I'm gonna start tuning into your lives more, because I see you go live all the time. So I'm gonna have to start tuning in, man. But keep up the good work, and I'll be on the lookout for what you got coming up. And like I said, thanks again for stopping by. So
and I appreciate you, man. Like I said, I look forward to it. I love being on these type of things, to be able to, I guess be able to like show my family and friends. Because the last one I was on with Ashōka, they were like, how you get on the podcast? I was like, I got asked. So I said yes. I didn't have a problem. I don't have a problem, telling people like my journey, being able to spill gems when I can. Like, if anybody ever wants me to come back on their podcast, I'll come back for part 2 anytime. Absolutely.
Hey, we do part 2s here all the time, so you're welcome back anytime, man.
Just let me know.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. That was episode 231. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit the support button on your podcast streaming platform if you'd like to send any funds. Feel free to leave us that 5-star rating if you enjoyed today's episode. And tune in on Tuesday nights, twitch.tv/AnthonyChurch24 for more exclusive and in-depth content. And we'll see you this time next week. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in.